Well, and what's interesting about you describing this is it's probably been a couple months now since I had this conversation, but Kevin Saras and I had a conversation about large language models and some of the challenges with this. And one of the biggest challenges is it's the opposite of what you used to have to do with logic and things, in that you used to give it a bunch of parameters and it would only do what the parameters were that you gave it. With generative AI, all of a sudden it was like it's everything, and you have to try and tell it everything you don't want it to do. And it's a black box in terms of, well, I don't know what criteria or parameters it's even using. And so you've actually, in many ways, solved that by saying, well, let's find that right balance of, let's create the right kind of parameters, but still have the openness of artificial intelligence, but in a controlled way that then gives you a consistent analytical approach, which is a very good thing for analytics and reporting.
Yeah, and I would say the fact that our system is not as generalizable is why we're not, worth $1 trillion. But from a client standpoint, they just want it to work for them. So, just to your point, the fact that it's much more specific and takes a little bit of time to customize, right? That's sort of our issue. But from a client standpoint, they just want it to work. They don't care that this thing also works for 50,000 other use cases.
But I think the thing with that, and I think this is where we're going to see artificial intelligence continue to move. And I think you're ahead of the curve, to your point of, in many ways, you're ahead of the curve in this. I completely agree, because that general use case, while wildly popular, ends up in some ways being so generalized that it's also very difficult to get it to do a specific thing that you're trying to get it to do. Like, I really need it to do this, which sometimes that's fine, because it's like, well, the implications of it aren't really that big of a deal. Like, I don't really care on that. But when I think about how companies and anybody should be using analytics and reporting, that's not something you just want to, like, back of the napkin swag, like, I don't know, like, is it, relatively generically close? Because I've been in plenty of meetings where people are arguing about the accuracy of, hey, we're about to make a multi-million-dollar decision on this. Is this the right information to be making that decision? And you don't want to go, I don't know. I mean, it's probably close enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why a lot of these LLMs aren't used in wide-ranging, detailed, data-based questions, right? And there's also just really complicated logical questions that you have to put into the system that I don't think that these LLMs are able to handle, where it's kind of like, all right, there's this number, but you have to take it into context with this other number, and you have to weight it because it's only actually 5% of our sales, and all these different things like that where you're adding more and more complexity to the logical operation and needing it to have the system then balance that with 50 other stories that are just like that have a whole bunch of other different weights, and then try to figure out, well, which one of these things is quote unquote the most important.